There's no sports league unlike it anywhere in the world, where cartoons and football come together. This is the United States Cartoon Football League, celebrating its 40th anniversary.
Свечей, твоя грация, ориентиры страстей, острый бритвый взгляд, ясней, чем кристалл, и все говорят, ты тверже, чем металл.
И вкус ночи. Fashion girl, огонь и грация, твои глаза магнит, и парили лета. Fashion girl.
Транслируют сны, модели любви. В твоей красоте 500 КПД, и все мужчины, знай, стоят в режиме стендбай. Всему вопреки, сверкай и люби, свети за окно своим врагам назло.
И вкус ночи. Fashion girl, огонь и грация, твои глаза магнит, и парили лета. Fashion girl, ты гравитация, твой силуэт манит, и обжигает небо.
С экранов
Pre-game. The following story is unlike any fashion girl story I've written to date. For starters, neither fashion girl nor any style chick are the central characters in this story. But their presence is nonetheless important. This story centers around the controversy over the reboot of She-Ra. I first heard about this back in September 2018. I was given a link to the trailer for it on YouTube. I watched it, and I said to my friend who sent me the link that this new She-Ra looked like it won't fly with fans of the original or in general. I didn't know it at the time that there was controversy surrounding the characters' redesigns, poor storylines, poor artwork, nothing that resembles the original show. Major publications such as Teen Vogue, Entertainment Weekly, and even the New York Times ridiculed the original She-Ra and her fans, while saying that the new She-Ra has more depth. But what really angered fans of the original She-Ra was that she is scantily clad and adult men don't like the new She-Ra because they can't jack off to her. The showrunner for the new She-Ra hadn't been born yet during the original show's run and admitted at a Comic-Con in New York that she never watched the original show, and neither did the voice of the new She-Ra as well. It got to the point that voice actress of the original She-Ra had to weigh in on this, and in one person's opinion, she put her career and reputation on the line in defense of the original She-Ra and her older fans. Going back to the notion that older men are jacking off to the original She-Ra, it is ridiculous and very stupid. For the record, I'm a middle-aged, straight white male. I've been a fan of the original She-Ra for over 30 years. I also know that the original She-Ra stands for a lot more than just looks. One might ask, do I think the original She-Ra is hot? My answer is yes, she is arguably one of the most attractive female cartoon characters ever drawn. Then I might be asked if I jack off on account of her. My answer is a resounding no. To ridicule an established entity is one thing, but to ridicule people for liking that entity is quite another. As I've watched YouTube videos to get an idea about this, let me state for the record that I haven't seen the new series, because I don't subscribe to Netflix. But basing on what I've heard and seen on social media, I'm glad I don't. Also, for the record, I'm not slamming anyone for liking or disliking this or other rebooted shows. If you like the new show, it's fine by me. If you don't, that's okay too. I'm just adding my opinion to an already very heated debate about this issue. Sometimes a movie trailer might turn people off about seeing that movie. As the old saying goes, you don't get a second chance to make a first impression. I did a lot of homework on the subject for this story. I mentioned She-Ra a lot in Fashion Girl stories because she makes up 1/4 of the inspiration I had for her. Should Fashion Girl become a TV series or a series of movies, some might think that I, too, have in some way tried to take advantage of an already established character. Originally, Fashion Girl was to be Daphne Blake's alter ego, but since most people didn't like the idea, I made Fashion Girl Daphne's daughter instead, which makes her an original character. Daphne Blake was also 1/4 of the inspiration and the model for Fashion Girl. Wonder Woman and Xena are the other 2/4. Fashion Girl has the traits of these 4 characters. Fashion Girl possesses Wonder Woman's and She-Ra's strength, Xena's courage, and also has She-Ra's diplomatic abilities and compassion. Fashion Girl is not a hybrid of any of these characters. Now let's say that Fashion Girl does become more than just stories written on paper. She's also an attractive young woman. She too might be considered scantily clad, and she could also be subjected to slut-shaming. It's possible that any adult male fan who might be jerking off to her could also be attacked for liking Fashion Girl in this way. I can assure you as her creator, it's not the case with me. However, I've always said that these stories should be read by anyone over 13 years of age because of some of its mature content. I'm sure that, in some circles, She-Ra isn't the only hottie to get the slut-shaming treatment. Think of Daphne Blake for instance. The people at Hanna-Barbera who designed her originally were going for the hot aspect. In early years of Scooby-Doo, she was mostly eye candy as well as the classic damsel in distress. But that changed when she was reintroduced back to the show in 1983. She wasn't scantily clad, but she did have an hourglass figure that would have put Barbie to shame. It's apparent in her classic hands-on-hips pose. As I stated in the About the Author page, I founded the United States Cartoon Football League, or USCFL for short. And it was here that the controversy was settled in a more unbiased and neutral way. Shira has been a staple in this league for over 30 years. She's been in charge of her own team, merged with He-Man to form a team called the Masters of Power, and now is part of a Filmation All-Star team. The USCFL's main slogan is where cartoons and football come together. The league began in 1981 and was introduced online in 2006. Every spring, 16 teams battle it out on an NFL-type level. There have been a lot of changes over the years, but there have also been lots of traditions. For instance, this is a spring league and doesn't directly compete with the NFL or collegiate teams. The first game of the season is always played in Miami. There is also a good guy, bad guy style of play. In other words, if a character is good, they play on offense while an evil character plays on defense. Special teams are mixed. It's also a co-ed league. Both male and female characters can share the field at the same time and play any position. Each venue has 3 locker rooms. One is for the male players, one is for the female players, and the third is used before, during, and immediately after a game, where the coaches discuss the plans for each game, and will happen afterward. USCFL games are exciting, high-scoring affairs. The league's current format is a 31-game tournament, spanning 4 months that ends with a final game now known as the Disney Bowl. Characters who might not know each other otherwise are bitter rivals in this league. All 16 teams are all-star teams. In September 2018, the league brought back teams that once played in this league independently in a mini-tournament known as the Retro League. Both He-Man and She-Ra played in this tournament. To be clear, I have no rights to any of these characters for this league. It's done in the spirit of good, clean fun. As part of the Filmation All-Stars, She-Ra plays her home games from Richmond, Virginia, at a venue known as Lou Scheimer Field. This stadium is one of 11 stadiums in the league named for the person or persons responsible for the characters they created. Walt Disney, William Hanna and Joseph Barbera, Charles Schultz, Jim Henson, Mel Blanc, Rupert Murdoch, Stephen Hillenburg, Walter Lantz, Stan Lee and Max Fleischer all have their names on USCFL venues. The other stadiums, like in the NFL, have corporations named for them. One last thing, no USCFL player appears in rebooted form. They all appear in their original or more recognizable look. No drawing of any character in a football uniform is made or displayed. And finally, gender is not an issue, as is age, and any character that can talk, walk, or stand erect are eligible to play in this league. This story is different, as you'll see. Instead of chapters, this story will be divided into quarters, just like in football. This is also why this chapter is called pregame instead of chapter 1. To get a better understanding of this story, imagine that She-Ra is a real person. She is fully aware of this controversy. Because she's played an intricate part in making the style chicks what they are today, She-Ra asks Fashion Girl for help, and she gets not only Fashion Girl's help, but all the style chicks too. The She-Ra portrayed in this story is the original She-Ra with one minor exception: she isn't fully aware of all Earth customs. Should Fashion Girl visit She-Ra's world, she would have the same problem. I hope you'll enjoy a different take on a story that caused a major internet war of words. First quarter. It all started on Thanksgiving Day 2018. The Style Chicks and Junior Style Chicks gathered at Belfair Manor in Atlanta for a feast provided by Victoria. During the day, like most people, everyone watched the Macy's parade and 2 of the 3 scheduled football games. They ate during the second game, and after eating, the juniors told the others about the fact that She-Ra was coming back to television after a 32-year absence. Everyone was excited about this because of their relationship to She-Ra and what she means to the Style Chicks cause. The show premiered on November 16th, and the juniors waited until Thanksgiving to watch all 13 episodes. With Netflix, you can binge-watch any show at any time. But as everyone was watching one episode after another, the reactions weren't very good. Fashion Girl was the first to voice her opinion and said, "What was whoever was responsible for this show thinking? This is nothing like the She-Ra we all know." The others' reactions were about the same. The Junior Style Chicks, now all teenagers, also were stunned by what they saw. Sachs said, "If this is what they are trying to do with She-Ra, it's no wonder reboots don't do too well." Moments later, the alarm in the command center rang out. Fashion Girl went in to see what the problem was. Normally this alarm system alerts the style chicks of major problems anywhere in the world. Instead, it was the original Shira calling. She said, "Happy Thanksgiving, Fashion Girl, and to all your friends." Fashion Girl replied, "Same to you and your family." "What's the matter?" Shira asked, "Have you seen this new version of me?" Fashion Girl answered, "Unfortunately, yes. We just finished watching all 13 episodes. It's terrible." Shira said, trying to fight back tears, "There's more, which is why I'm calling you. I'm being attacked as well as my fans." In shock, Fashion Girl replied, "What? Why would anyone do this to you?" Shira couldn't fight back tears anymore and said, "Have you also seen what is being said about me on social media? I'm being slut-shamed, I'm being called one-dimensional, my adult male fans are being accused of using me for arousal, and worst of all, the people who made this knockoff never saw me in action ever." Shira continued to cry as Fashion Girl replied, "I haven't had the chance to see anything on social media about you. But we will all look into it." Shira said, still crying, "At least the USCFL is doing something about this. Next Friday, they've set up an exhibition game between me and my friends against this counterfeit knockoff." Fashion Girl replied, "That's great. I've heard of the USCFL. My mother and father play on the Hanna-Barbera team right here in Atlanta. What's at stake if it's an exhibition game?" Shira said, "This dispute will be settled in a fair and unbiased way. If anything, it's mostly for bragging rights." Fashion Girl asked, "You shouldn't be alone at this difficult time. Where are you so we can talk face to face?" Shira answered, "I'm in Richmond where Filmation plays their home games." Fashion Girl said with confidence, "You can count on us being there for you next Friday. Is there anything we can do for you in the meantime?" Shira replied, "There are 2 things you can do for me." Fashion Girl said, "Name them. You've done so much for us. This is the very least we can do for you." Shira replied, "You are truly a good friend, Fashion Girl. First, I would like to see you the night before the game, and second, I would like for you to give my team a pep talk before the game starts." Fashion Girl said, "You got it. See you next Thursday night." Fashion Girl out. Since Fashion Girl was alone in the command center, no one else heard what the conversation was about or who was calling. She came out with a strange look on her face. Tiffany asked, "You look like someone died, Fashion Girl, what's wrong?" Fashion Girl answered, "That was Shira who was calling. The Shira we all know. I've never seen her so upset. She's being attacked on social media for how she looks, and that she's a one-dimensional character. She said that her fans are also under attack for liking her, as is her adult male fans are being accused of using her for sexual arousal." Tiffany said, "That's terrible. I can't believe someone like Shira could be attacked like that. After that poor excuse of a reboot we saw, I can't see what's so great about that wannabe that the real thing is under fire for. What can we do?" Fashion Girl replied, "Before I answer that, I want to gather the others together so I won't have to repeat it." The others gathered around Fashion Girl to find out what she wanted. Fashion Girl said, "The alarm you heard was from Shira. I guess she has no other way to get in touch with us. She too saw this wannabe hero that we saw. I've never seen her so upset. This is more than a poor replica. I want for all of you to look into as much information as you can to find out more about this war of words on the internet. I'm going to Richmond, Virginia, where she plays her home football games in the spring. She shouldn't be alone at this difficult time." Sephora asked, "Football games in Richmond? What are you talking about?" Fashion Girl answered, "I'm surprised, being a big football fan, that you never heard of the United States Cartoon Football League, or USCFL for short. The best loved, best remembered cartoon characters play in this league, including my mother and father, right here in Atlanta. There's a team in Philadelphia." Sephora said, "Yes, I think I have heard of it. I'm just too big an Eagles fan to be aware of it." Belle Kay added, "I have heard of it. Miami is where it all started. The 80s All-Stars have just as much of a following as the Dolphins, and they won the league title earlier this year." Fashion Girl said, I knew we had plans to get an early start on Christmas shopping at the mall. But I think you will all agree with me that this is more important. The others agreed as Fashion Girl continued, Godiva, can I borrow your bracelets for a while? I think Shira needs to literally lift her spirits as Firebolt again. Godiva answered, of course, I understand. I owe her this much. Fashion Girl said, thank you, Godiva. We all owe her so much. This is just a loan for now. I'm going to Richmond to find her and keep her company for a couple of days. I'll be back Sunday night. We will all go to Richmond on Thursday to attend a special exhibition match the USCFL has arranged to help settle this unusual situation at least partly. Good luck in finding out everything you can on this issue. Fashion Girl went to the back of the mansion and said to herself, Shira, you have no idea just how much you mean to all of us. I know we've told you, but not nearly often enough. At that moment she raised her arms, crossed her wrists and said, style me as the Phoenix. In seconds, Fashion Girl underwent an amazing transformation to become the powerful Phoenix of the Archangels. Once transformed, the Phoenix took to the night sky, destination, Richmond, Virginia. Second quarter. By the time the Phoenix arrived in Richmond, it was past midnight. She had a hard time finding Shira's location because she didn't ask about it. But then again, going there was an afterthought. It took another hour before she found what looked like Shira on a balcony overlooking the city. When the Phoenix verified to herself that she had found Shira, she swooped down onto the balcony and asked, got room on this balcony for another person? Shira looked startled but answered pleasantly, Phoenix, I'm very glad to see you. Remember folks, Shira knows that the Phoenix and Fashion Girl are one and the same. The Phoenix said, sorry to come unannounced, I decided to come after I spoke with you. I should have asked you for directions. I'm not taking no for an answer on this. I'm spending the weekend with you so I can figure out just exactly what's going on. Shira had no objections and invited the Phoenix to come in. Surprisingly, Shira had a very tasteful, respectful place in the city. Confused, the Phoenix asked, since when do you live here? I mean, on Earth and not just Virginia? Shira answered, since I play in the USCFL, all players are given living quarters in the cities they play in. The Phoenix then asked, I get it, but what are you doing here now at this time of year? Shira answered, when I heard about the controversy over this reboot of me, I had to come for more information. The Phoenix asked, when was the announcement made by the USCFL concerning this exhibition match? Shira answered, earlier tonight. It was a breaking news alert. The Phoenix said, excuse me one moment please. The Phoenix contacted Tiffany 2 first, inform her that she was in Richmond and second, to find out more about the USCFL for their benefit, and about the game that was coming up. The Phoenix continued, not only am I here for moral support, I'm also here to try to answer any questions you may have. What do you want to know about first? Shira asked, are any other characters being rebooted, and what kind of reception do they get? The Phoenix answered, classic shows are being rebooted all the time. Fans of the original shows don't like them, because they don't adhere to the original source. Like in your case, whoever is behind your reboot apparently didn't take full advantage of the rights to this show, put together a poor version, and slapped your name to it. Shira asked, I've also heard talk about this being done in an androgynous way. What does that mean? The Phoenix answered, it simply means that someone is taking all the masculine or feminine aspects out of a character, and making them into a character that's neutral in appearance. In other words, they turn you into how can I put it, a more generic version that, it seems, that everyone wants. I got offended by this when I watched it with the others, and they too weren't happy with it or about it. Shira asked, is it that wrong for any woman to be pretty? The Phoenix answered, absolutely not. There is nothing wrong for a woman to be pretty and powerful. It seems that in today's world, some pretty women are stuck up and vain. In some cases it might be true, but in reality, no woman should ever be subjected with slut-shaming. But as you've seen with me, I'm a beautiful woman with the power to kick ass. I'm also a businesswoman and is taken seriously. You might ask if I've ever been slut-shamed? It happens every time we deal with a bad person. We are sometimes called style sluts while I've been called fashion floozy. So I model in magazines and do photo shoots and fashion shows, but it doesn't mean that it's all that I am. My first husband Greg admitted to me when I first met him that he was my biggest fan. His father told me that his bedroom walls were plastered with posters of me, and he saw my shoot in Playboy. By aging you down, these people must think that how you looked before was wrong, and their version of you is right. Shira asked, I also heard that the person behind the reboot is part of the LGBT community. What does that mean exactly? The Phoenix answered, it stands for lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender. A lesbian is a woman who is romantically involved with another woman. Gay means the same for men. Bisexual means that they can be romantically involved with both genders, and transgender or transsexual means that a man or a woman feels better as the opposite. They sometimes undergo surgery or dress differently. Recently they added a Q to this, but I'm afraid to say what it might stand for without sounding prejudiced. Some of my fellow models are lesbians, and they've never tried anything with me. They are some of the best friends I've ever had. Shira asked one final question, Phoenix, if I lose this game next Friday, does that mean all my fans will desert me? Quit being a fan altogether? Or just simply hate me? The Phoenix answered, if they do, they weren't fans to begin with. You have at least 20 loyal friends and fans in us. I wouldn't worry about that too much though. Your fans will stick by you no matter what. When I go back to Atlanta Sunday night, we will all have a better understanding as to what's really going on. I should have brought some leftovers with me. You must be starving. Shira said, thanks Phoenix, but I'm not very hungry. I'm too upset to think about food. The Phoenix replied, you should keep your strength up for next week's game. In the meantime, I have something for you. Call it a loan. The Phoenix pulled out the bracelets Shira gave Godiva to become Firebolt of the Archangels. The Phoenix said, I asked Godiva to let me borrow these this weekend, so you can forget about this nonsense by being Firebolt again. Don't worry, Godiva isn't giving up being an Archangel. She agreed because, like the rest of us, we're worried and we care about you. Go ahead, put them on. Shira took off her normal gauntlets too once again, if only for the weekend, become Firebolt. The Phoenix said, become Firebolt now because we are going to do some flying together. Let's literally lift your spirits. Shira remembered what to do to become Firebolt. Once she was Firebolt again, the Phoenix asked, what are some of the hot spots around here? Some partying will make you feel better. Now as Firebolt, Shira answered, I know just the place. The Phoenix said, well, I'm here. I owe Swiftwind an apology from 3 years ago. Remember I said that as Firebolt, you didn't need him. I feel better to do this. Firebolt replied, I understand. Sure, I'll take you to where he is. There is a stable just for him at the stadium. The Phoenix said, let's rock. Both the Phoenix and Firebolt leapt off the balcony, took to the air, and flew for nearly 2 hours, getting a view of Richmond from the air. The Phoenix noticed a large open-aired building and asked, is that the stadium, Firebolt? Firebolt answered, that's it, Lusheimer Field. The house that Shira built. The lights were on as field crews were beginning the process to prepare for next Friday's game. Firebolt flew to a different entrance, while the Phoenix flew to the main entrance. The guard in the guardhouse asked, who are you, and what are you doing here? The Phoenix answered, I'm the Phoenix of the Archangels. I'm a friend of Shira's, and I'm here to pay her a visit. The guard said, I'm sorry, ma'am, but she isn't here. Try again in the morning. Just then, a phone began to ring near the entrance. As the guard answered it, Firebolt threw her voice to make it like Shira's voice on the phone. She told the guard that it was okay for the Phoenix to come in. After the guard hung up, he said, I'm sorry, Ms. Phoenix, that was Shira. She confirmed who you are, and said it was okay for you to come in. You'll find her in Swiftwind's private quarters. The Phoenix thanked the guard and went inside where Firebolt was waiting. The Phoenix asked, how come the guard didn't see you? Firebolt answered, I went in through a different entrance unguarded. I called the guardhouse, disguised my voice, and gave you the okay to come in. Firebolt snuck into a restroom to change back into Shira to not be suspected by the guards. She showed the Phoenix to Swift Wind's stable. The Phoenix said, "Hey Swifty, long time no see." Swift Wind replied, "It's good to see you again, Phoenix. Is Shira with you?" The Phoenix answered, "How do you think I got in?" Moments later, Shira brought oats for her beloved friend. Swift Wind asked, "What are you doing here, Phoenix?" The Phoenix answered, "Two things. First, I want to apologize to you for if you had thought that you wouldn't be needed while Shira was helping us with becoming the Archangels. Second, I'm here after I saw the reboot version. Have you seen it?" Swift Wind pointed out a television set in the back of his stable and replied, "Yes, I did. I'm mad. They called me Horsey." "Horsey? What kind of name is that?" The Phoenix said, "I got a similar reaction from Shira. I was enjoying Thanksgiving in Atlanta with my fellow style chicks and family when we saw this too. She called me as if she knew that we were watching it. That's why I'm here to keep her company this weekend." Swift Wind said, "I accept your apology, and I'm glad that Shira can rely on the style chicks and the Archangels in this time of need." The Phoenix replied, "We will be here next Friday for the game. In the meantime, I've asked the others to look into the internet war this reboot caused." Shira added, "The Phoenix did explain a few things and what this is about. I'm being accused of being too attractive, and I'm also accused of being the subject of adult male arousal." The Phoenix said, "This game will settle this hopefully once and for all. But if it doesn't, let me assure you both that as long as you both exist, your loyal fans will never desert you. And that includes me and my friends. Care to join us in a little flying, Swifty?" Swift Wind was never able to not resist the urge to fly, and agreed to it. Shira remained in her normal look, so any security guard wouldn't think that there was an unauthorized person on the property. The three flew for nearly 2 hours. It was going on 5 o'clock in the morning, when the Phoenix noticed Shira falling asleep on Swift Wind's back. He flew back to Shira's apartment, and landed on her balcony. The Phoenix gently removed Shira off his back, carried her into her bedroom, and laid her down on her bed. The Phoenix quietly said, "Sleep well, Princess of Power." Before going back on the balcony, the Phoenix saw where Shira took off her normal gauntlets, and placed a small homing device inside one of them just in case. The Phoenix went back onto the balcony, and offered to escort Swift Wind back to his stable at the stadium. Upon returning, Swift Wind asked, "Do you have a plan in place at the moment?" The Phoenix answered, "I'm right now, if you'll pardon the pun, flying off the seat of my pants. Remember, I just found out about this 12 hours ago." Just as the Phoenix was about to leave, she stopped herself and said, "Swifty, I just came up with an idea. I will check into a hotel for the weekend, so I can give Shira space, and at the same time, help her out. I also need to check in with the style chicks to see about their progress. Instruct Vicky to take the twins back home Sunday night, and have Sephora take the twins and the junior chicks shopping. And that's what I will do here. Today is Black Friday, the biggest shopping day of the year, and Shira will join me." Confused, Swift Wind asked, "How can you think of shopping at a time like this?" The Phoenix answered, "It's the perfect time for it, but not to shop. I will try to arrange a meet and greet with Shira and I as fashion girl. I believe if this knockoff is the new kid in town, I need to see if anyone's attitude toward our Shira has in fact changed." Swift Wind said, "That's a brilliant idea. Go ahead with your plan. I think it will work too." The Phoenix said, "Thanks, Swifty. I'll see you later. Oh, I can't resist asking, you said you have television in your stable. How do you operate it?" Swift Wind replied, with a voice command remote, "How else?" Just as the Phoenix was about to fly away, Swift Wind said, "Good luck, Princess of Powder." The Phoenix replied, "No one has ever called me that before. It's usually I'm called style slut or fashion floozy. Just don't let Shira hear you call me that. She might think that I too might try to steal some of her thunder. I must go now." As the Phoenix said, she was flying by the seat of her pants, but she thought her idea would work. She found a nearby hotel, resumed her normal identity as fashion girl, and checked in. She immediately went to the business center, and tried to call Atlanta to see if anyone was up early. Fortunately for her, Penny was up and said, "Boss, I guess you were burning the midnight oil. What's going on in Richmond?" The Phoenix replied, "Plenty. Shira is okay. I found out where she lives here, and I saw Swift win too. He's so mad about this, I think he would like to give this wannabe a swift kick in the ass." Penny replied, "We've looked into the matter as you asked. So far we've seen some stuff, but I'm sure there's plenty more we need to uncover." Fashion Girl said, "I bet there's more on this subject on both sides. Penny, I need you to do the following. First, I want everyone to do around-the-clock internet searches in 8-hour shifts. Next, tell Vicky she needs to take the twins back home Sunday night. In the meantime, have Sephora or Belle go with the twins and the juniors to the mall to do the shopping we wanted to do, and if you can hone in on my signal, have the Glam Mobile sent to the parking lot of the hotel I'm at now. Wait a moment, I just remembered something. The Glam Mobile is being serviced back home. I really need a car while I'm here after all." Penny replied, "Your mother's Glam Mobile is here. I could send that to you." Fashion Girl said, "You got to be kidding me. That car hasn't been used in 27 years. I don't know if it would still work." Penny replied, "Sephora told me that a man comes by once a month to look at the original style chick vehicles. He even takes them out to make sure they are still operable. I think it will serve the purpose you need it for." Hesitant, Fashion Girl said, "All right, Penny, send it over." Penny replied, "Will do, boss. Good luck." Fashion Girl stepped out of the lobby and saw the original Glam Mobile was parked outside. Now she could put phase 1 of her plan in motion. A major shopping mall was also nearby as people by the thousands were waiting for the mall to open. Fashion Girl parked right out in front of the entrance, got out, and headed toward the front door. People saw Fashion Girl and were surprised by her appearance. She tried to go to the front of the line, as people got angry with her thinking that she was cutting the line. Fashion Girl said, "Folks, believe it or not, I'm not here to do any shopping. I need to go to the office and ask them for a favor. I'm willing to wait with you. You have my word that I have no intention, at least for now, to do any Christmas shopping." Fashion Girl's words calmed the crowd down. She was willing to sign autographs and pose for pictures. At 8 o'clock, the mall was open. Everyone gave Fashion Girl a head start, so she wouldn't have to fight the crowd. She saw a sign with an arrow pointing the direction to the mall office. It was open, and she went in. She spoke with the mall manager, and he agreed to allow her and Shira to make an appearance in the mall. The manager set up a 3-hour window between noon and 3 o'clock. This gave Fashion Girl some time to allow her to rest, and let Shira continue to rest as well. At 10:30, Fashion Girl parked the car in a regular space at the mall, resumed her new identity as the Phoenix, and flew back to Shira's apartment. The Phoenix saw that Shira was awake and looked tired. Shira asked, "What time is it, Phoenix?" The Phoenix answered, "After 10:30. As I left you earlier, I escorted Swift Wind back home. He asked me if I had any plans to help you out. At first I didn't, but then I had an idea. You and I are going to make a special appearance at the mall beginning at noon. My thought is if you have a chance to meet and talk with people, I can determine what their mindset is and try to make some sense out of this." Shira didn't think this idea would work, but she agreed to satisfy her curiosity and erase any doubt about her fans' loyalty. She resumed her new role as Firebolt and flew with the Phoenix to the mall, where they found a place to resume their normal identities. Fashion Girl drove to a service entrance to the mall, as mall employees were asked to help to bring the Glam Mobile to the central area. Fashion Girl couldn't drive the car in with the motor running. The employees pushed the car in to avoid this. It was just about noon when a voice on the public address system said, "Ladies and gentlemen, today we have 2 very special guests here to meet and greet with all of you. They will sign autographs and pose for pictures. Please welcome the stylish crime fighter Fashion Girl, along with our own heroine and star of the Filmation All-Stars, the Princess of Power herself, Shira." The doors to the Glam Mobile opened as both Fashion Girl and Shira came out to thunderous applause by the crowd. People of all ages seemed receptive to Shira as she posed for pictures with the crowd and signed autographs. Fashion Girl's idea seemed to have worked out as she intended and predicted. No one in the crowd at any time while they were there had anything negative to say to Shira. Fans of the football team also gave Shira some words of encouragement, hoping that she would win the upcoming game. As the mall manager promised, the session ended at 3 o'clock. Shira seemed satisfied with the outcome of the meet and greet. Later that Saturday night, Shira answered Fashion Girl's question about where to go to party. She took her to a high-class honky-tonk bar. Both Shira and Fashion Girl can dance, but they discovered that they could also square dance. Shira is one of this club's best customers. The club also offered food as well as drinks. Fashion Girl noticed Shira drinking this colorful drink all night long. It was the same colors as Shira's costume. In a VIP room and after dinner, Fashion Girl called over the server that had been waiting on them all night long and asked, "Pardon me, miss, what kind of drink Shira's been drinking all night long?" The server, whose name was Valerie, replied, "It's our specialty drink. It's called the Shira Special." In amazement, Fashion Girl asked, "You named a drink after her? That's amazing. What's in it?" Valerie answered, "It's sweet one moment and will kick your ass the next. The gold is ginger ale, the red is cranberry juice, and the white is half and half. Shira always drinks it virgin style. The alcohol in it will kick your ass. Would you like to try one?" Fashion Girl said, "All right, I'll try it with alcohol." Valerie asked, "Are you sure you want it with alcohol? It's pretty potent." Fashion Girl said, "I'll try it. Whatever the alcohol is, I can handle it." Valerie replied, "Very well, ma'am. Listen, my break is coming up. May I join you both for a few minutes? I know you're in town, Fashion Girl, and I would like to talk with you." Fashion Girl replied, "Sure, we don't mind." Valerie walked away telling the bartender Fashion Girl's order. Valerie returned moments later with 2 drinks, one of which was virgin style. A thin, edible wafer was placed in between the layers of drinks. Once dissolved, the colors merged together. The bartender put a swizzle stick in the virgin drink. Fashion Girl took a sip, and it knocked her for a loop. Valerie sat down and said, "By the look on your face, Fashion Girl, you just got belted by the booze." Stunned, Fashion Girl asked, "I sure did. What's in this?" Valerie answered, "The alcohol in the Shira Special is moonshine." Fashion Girl said, "Moonshine? Hope you don't get raided by revenuers." Laughing, Valerie replied, "Relax, it's legally distilled." Shira added, "Once I learned what moonshine is, I always order it virgin style." Fashion Girl began to feel a little woozy, so Shira said, "Val, I know what you wanted to ask Fashion Girl for this, so I'll answer your question. She wanted to know what you thought of the controversy surrounding me and that terrible reboot." Valerie took a deep breath and replied, "I heard about it from a friend of mine. Between working here all night and being a single parent, I don't have much time to live on social media. But I think it's awful how they are treating you as well as anyone who worked on your series initially. But I heard about the game you'll have next week. I hope you kick that wannabe's ass. Teach her that there's only one Shira, and that's you." Fashion Girl said, "That was what we wanted to know. It seems that's what the people we've seen has also said. They don't like how Shira is being talked about, and anyone who created her or her many fans. Look, that drink really kicked my ass. I need to go back to my hotel. How much do we owe you?" Valerie replied, "We give the USCFL the bill, and they pay us for anything Shira or her friends ordered, including gratuity." Fashion Girl reached into her utility belt, pulled out a $50 bill, handed it to Valerie and said, "Here, Valerie, please accept this for being nice to us." Surprised, Valerie replied, "I can't take this, Fashion Girl. I said tip is included." Fashion Girl said, "It's all right, loyalty should always be rewarded." Valerie thanked Fashion Girl, and they both left the club. Outside in the parking lot, Fashion Girl handed the keys to Shira, so they could both go home. But before they could get in the car, a man in his 40s stopped them and said, "Excuse me, ladies, may I have a moment of your time?" Shira replied, "Okay, sir, but we can only spare a few moments. My friend had just one drink, and she's kind of, what's the word? Oh yes, tipsy." The man said, "Ah, she tried the Shira special? It does have a kick to it. I'll be brief. My name is Dan Hirsch. I am the owner of Dan Hirsch Ford. I heard about the controversy surrounding you, and also knew Fashion Girl was here too. I'd like to invite you both to my dealership tomorrow for another meet and greet with my customers. That is if you wish." Fashion Girl replied, "That is what I have been here for the last 2 days, to try to find out if anyone is upset about the controversy, and so far, I was right. People here are angry about it." Dan said, "I know Shira wouldn't part with Swift Wind, but I can give you a great deal on a new car, specifically a Mustang. Picture this, Shira, you two, Fashion Girl. I can see you both driving on the open road in the best Mustang Ford makes. The top down, your long flowing hair blowing in the wind. It would be a great experience." Fashion Girl said, "I'll think about it, but we can't make any promises. Please forgive me, I'm not feeling well, and I need to go back to my hotel." Dan replied, "Of course. Here's my card. The address is on it. Come at 11, the meet and greet will start at 12. Shira asked one final question, "Why are you doing this for me?" Dan answered, "Very simple, my dear. I was a fan of He-Man as a kid. My sister was a fan of yours, and we both played with the action figures. My kids are fans of the both of you. I'm doing this to show my support at my expense." This satisfied Shira, so she got into the car, drove Fashion Girl to her hotel, and helped her inside her room. Shira drove back to her apartment. Fashion Girl felt better the next morning, and participated in the meet and greet, while she thought of the picture Dan painted the night before. This continued all weekend until Fashion Girl had to go back to Atlanta on Sunday night. Shira gave Fashion Girl back Firebolt's bracelets and said, "Tell Godiva thanks for allowing me to use these. I feel a whole lot better. Practice for this game begins tomorrow morning. I feel confident that we will win." Fashion Girl replied, "I'm glad this weekend went well for you. I'd hate to leave you if you didn't feel better about this situation. I'll tell Godiva what you said, and I will return Thursday night as you asked." Instead of leaving like she's been doing, Fashion Girl left through the front door and exited the building through the lobby, got into the Glam Mobile, and headed back to Atlanta, where the others gave her a detailed report about what they discovered online about this terrible matter. Halftime. Just like in football, we are taking a break from the main story, so I can address the following topics. Item 1, aesthetics. Or a fancy word for looks. Again, let me make this point perfectly clear. This story isn't entirely about the backlash this issue caused, but to adhere to it instead. In one respect, I agree that a reboot of Shira was going to happen eventually. It wouldn't have mattered to me if she was aged down or aged up. This is a matter of people in general. Ask yourself this: would any woman want to be treated like the way the original Shira has been treated? Slut-shamed? I wouldn't think so. There's an old Native American saying that goes, "You'll never know how another person feels until you walk a mile in his moccasins." "Don't judge a book by its cover" is also another popular saying. But after I learned that I am being indirectly accused of using a hot cartoon chick for sexual arousal by people who don't know me or men like me, is a very terrible thing to say, especially if it's for no good reason whatsoever. I would have given this new show a chance when I first heard about it, but after I learned of what some people online have said, and the way the show's production staff has been accusing adult male fans, I wouldn't touch this show with a 20-foot pole. Is it really that wrong to be both pretty and powerful? As Shira asked Fashion Girl. What about real women who are attractive? Should we give them similar disrespect? Or should we embrace them for who they really are? You decide. Me personally, I've known women of all ages, races, religions, colors, and sizes. In my years of working in the retail industry, I know that you can't give certain people special treatment. Rather, you must treat them with equal respect, even if they don't respect you. In other words, I would give the same level of service to a man, a woman, or a child with no differential treatment. They would be all treated the same. Looks, money, or any other persuasion wouldn't make me do my job differently. Now that we are in 2019, it angers me that we still live in a world where we are still being judged on the outside, without knowing what we are like on the inside. Think about this for a moment. When it was on television, did men at the time who watched Baywatch liked it for its gripping dialogue? Its stellar acting? Its influences on society? Or seeing Pamela Anderson running down the beach with her boobs bouncing in all directions? If you answered yes to the last question, then you've proven the point of view of those who put this reboot together, that you like the original Shira for being hot and nothing else. My mother and I saw the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit when it was in movie theaters in 1988. When I saw the scene where Eddie Valiant was being told by Betty Boop that a movie producer never missed a performance with Jessica Rabbit, my thoughts were the same as his, that an attractive rabbit was about to sing. When Jessica slipped out from behind the curtain, I had the same reaction as Eddie Valiant had, shock and disbelief. Jessica Rabbit would make any other cartoon chick look sick by comparison. Now think about this, there is a website called WatchMojo.com where they do random top 10 picks. They did 2 surveys on this very subject. They did a top 10 list of the hottest female cartoon characters of all time. Shira made this list, and was ranked 8th ahead of Daphne Blake, and who was number 1? Jessica Rabbit. She's not only made similar lists like this, but was also never ranked lower than number 1. Another top 10 list was also done by WatchMojo.com for the top 10 cartoon shows with surprisingly sexy women. Shira made this list too, and was ranked 3rd behind Daphne Blake, and who was number 1? Josie from Josie and the Pussycats. I guess it depends on who you ask, I suppose. So you see my point. Don't judge others unless you want to be judged. As Jessica Rabbit once said, I'm not bad, I'm just drawn that way. Item 2, Style Chick Vital Statistics. Fashion Girl hasn't had the same exposure as Daphne, Shira, or any other female character or heroine. But if she did, she too might experience the same treatment, which is why this story has been written. This is a more detailed look into social injustice. I've heard the term SJW recently, and I first didn't know what it meant. Then I found out that it stands for Social Justice Warrior. I'm still not sure what it means, but if it means what I think it means, that this story isn't about that. Remember that one of Fashion Girl's main objectives is to protect the innocent at all costs. So helping Shira out was right on her part. Here are some interesting facts about all the style chicks. Of the 9 current style chicks, 5 of them are in a relationship. Fashion Girl is the only one of the 5 to be married twice. Of these 5, 3 of them are mothers. This doesn't count Wendy of the junior style chicks, who is in a relationship and is a mother. Here's the reason why the others aren't in a relationship. Victoria is just simply too busy to have a relationship. Between serving as Fashion Girl's lookout, being the true lady of the Mystique Boutique, and running her own restaurant, it's amazing that she has time to sleep, much less date. During her wild days in Chicago, Godiva gave birth to 4 children by 4 different men. She has no idea who the fathers are. Good fodder for Maury Povich, so as she was banished from Chicago, she's tried to get back in the city's good graces again and be with her children. This is a goal she's trying very hard to obtain. In Macy's case, she never dated because she had major responsibilities at a very young age. She became her Aboriginal tribe's medicine woman at 12 and their leader at 18. She didn't want to choose anyone within the tribe for fear that she would give one man an advantage over the others. And for Sephora, she had a boyfriend in high school and her first 3 years in college, after becoming a co-guardian to the junior style chicks, plus her final year of school, caused a rift between her and her boyfriend. She's waiting until at least Sax turns 18 to date again, even though the juniors can and always have been able to take care of themselves. No one knows for sure just how old the original and new Shiraz are supposed to be. But most people believe that the original Shira ranges in age between 18 to 24. Some think she's young as 16. It's believed by most on both sides that the new Shira could be as young as 12 to as old as 14. For the style chicks, Sephora is the youngest at 23, while Zara is the oldest at 34, as of December 2018. Fashion Girl is 32. But if you add the ages of all 9 style chicks, then divide by 9, their average age is 26.9 years old. The style chicks boasts both friendship and diversity. Zara was born in Norway while Macy was born in China and raised in Australia. Godiva is African American, and although Belle Kay was born in America, she's of Colombian heritage. The average height of a style chick is about 5'7", and the average weight is about 130 pounds. Godiva is both the tallest at 6'2", and weighs the most at 190 pounds. Zara is the shortest at 5'5" tall, while Sephora is the thinnest at 120 pounds. Fashion Girl is 5 feet 8 inches and weighs 125 pounds. All 9 style chicks have various powers and skills. Everything from hand-to-hand combat, martial arts, sorcery, archery, alchemy, swordsmanship, and diplomacy. 3 of the 9 style chicks have college degrees, while all 9 finished high school. The style chicks are also well-to-do with a combined net worth of $6 billion with assets and holdings totaling another $3 billion. Finally and most importantly, the style chicks are like a very exclusive sorority. They love each other, but not in love with each other. Item 3. Cartoons and football really do come together. Fans of cartoons and sports both have a similar following. Some people might like a cartoon from their childhood, or are a fan of a sports team in their area, or where they're from. The idea I had back in 1981 to put both cartoons and football together, I've been told by some, to be was pure genius on my part. A friend of mine who's no longer with us belonged to a blog involving Kim Possible. He told other bloggers about the USCFL, and one person replied that it was a great way to keep the memory of cartoons no longer on television alive. Some people have asked me why I didn't put the USCFL online sooner than 2006, and the answer is simple. I didn't have the knowledge or the technology to put it online sooner. In 1981, the home computer was coming into its own. But the average American at the time couldn't afford one. The home computer didn't have the capabilities it has now, and the internet didn't exist back then, or at least not the way we know it today. I currently use a video game system in spectator mode to broadcast these games in a radio-like format. Back in 1981, home video game systems like Atari were mainstream, but my mother wouldn't let me put one in the house, so I had to at the time come up with a creative way to get these games recorded as far as scores were concerned. Over time I began to work, and I had to use my imagination. Fast forward to 2006, I was ready to put the league online, and even had a website for 5 years. When a major contributor passed away before the start of the 2013 season, I couldn't keep the website going because I didn't learn web design, and had no choice but to drop it. What's more, I dedicated the 2013 season in his memory, and was going to scrap it. The USCFL didn't play in 2014, and then I came up with an idea to restart the league with a former format in 2015. That format was to do a tournament-style season. Before that, I would have to play all non-webcasted games and record the stats. That this process was done by hand, and took far too long. Just by scores alone was good enough for any online purpose. And that's how this league works and operates. You'll see in the 4th quarter of this story. With that said, let's now look into the point of this portion of the chapter. Throughout the history of animation, sports-themed cartoon episodes and movies have gone down hand in hand with each other. What comes to mind if you hear the name Space Jam? The Looney Tunes playing a basketball game with Michael Jordan. How about Kim Possible? The entire series was about an athletic cheerleader saving the world. In the last season, not only did KP and Ron Stoppable become an item, but Ron was the star quarterback. The classic captain of the football team dating the head cheerleader scenario. Here are some examples, in an episode of The Flintstones in which Fred goes back to school to get his diploma, which he missed out on while playing football. Well, he wound up playing it anyway to the delight of his boss. In an episode of The Jetsons, George and Mr. Spacely went to a football game behind their wives' backs. They ended up winning a fur coat and divided it up for both of them, and it seemed for the billionth time, George went from being a vice president to unemployed in the blink of an eye. In an episode of The Simpsons, Bart, Homer, and others went to Miami for Super Bowl 33. John Madden and Pat Summerall lent their voices and likenesses to this episode. Bart was about to catch a pass by legendary Miami Dolphins quarterback Dan Marino, only for Homer to spoil it by intercepting the ball. In 1971, Hanna-Barbera had a show called The Pebbles and Bam Bam Show that featured them as teenagers in high school. The very first episode, called Gridiron Girl Trouble, had Pebbles playing in a high school football game. Like father, like daughter. She actually did well by scoring 2 touchdowns. There's an episode of Family Guy in which Peter becomes a player for the New England Patriots, angering Tom Brady in the process. Peter has a friend named Cleveland Brown. I wonder where Seth MacFarlane got the idea for his name. There was an early Hanna-Barbera episode of the Smurfs where they were playing soccer, which, as you know, is called football everywhere else in the world. Smurfette had a pretty good head shot. There was even a show that aired on Nickelodeon called NFL Rush Zone, featuring voices from actual NFL players and coaches. Certain music heard on SpongeBob SquarePants comes from NFL films. King of the Hill had several episodes, including 2 about the Dallas Cowboys, as well as Hank's glory days in high school. In the second book, Fashion Girl and Sephora went undercover as Miami Dolphins cheerleaders. The list goes on, but I will conclude with this: in case you haven't noticed, Sephora is a die-hard fan of the Philadelphia Eagles. Finally, let's not forget Charlie Brown's many failed attempts to kick a football held by Lucy. It's not his fault that she kept pulling the ball away at the last moment. However, when the Peanuts gang joined the USCFL late in 1983, Charlie Brown finally got his chance and successfully kicked a 30-yard field goal with Franklin, who was their kicker, holding the ball. So you see that, directly or indirectly, cartoons and football do go hand in hand with each other. What position does Shira play, if you're wondering? She's a quarterback. What number does she wear? Her number is 9, for which will play a part in the third quarter. And has she ever won big? Yes, she has. She's a 3-time USCFL champion, a title game MVP, holds the record for the most points scored in a single game. Tied for the record for most touchdowns thrown in a single game, and second for the most yards thrown in a single game. Know any NFL quarterback who can claim this? Item 4. All cartoon characters are victims of their time. Throughout history, all animated characters are victims of their time. Take for instance Felix the Cat. He first showed up in theaters in 1919 during the silent film era. As with any silent film, when he spoke, Felix's words appeared as balloons, just like in comic strips or comic books. He was a victim of his time because he didn't use a voice. Now take Betty Boop, the first cartoon sex symbol. Betty's a victim of her time as well because of how young women dressed like flappers during the Roaring '20s. Had she been made at a future time, she might not have been drawn the way she was. Now take any cartoon shorts that were made during World War II. Some characters like Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, and Bugs Bunny were used in propaganda cartoons. During the 1930s and 40s, African American characters were drawn or spoken in a very racist way, including everything from having big lips to talking in the same manner Hattie McDaniel did in Gone with the Wind. It was wrong then, and it's wrong now. Tom and Jerry cartoons featured a character that was dubbed Mammy Two Shoes. She was only seen from the neck down. To be politically correct today, these shorts were dubbed so when this character spoke, she spoke in clear and proper English. During the early years of television, most cartoon characters were drawn with thick black lines to make them look better on black and white TVs. After color television was perfected and became mandatory, any character that was drawn before looked better now with thinner black lines. As I mentioned in the pregame chapter, Hanna-Barbera deliberately drew Daphne Blake to be hot and the damsel in distress. If she had been created later than 1969, she would have been seen differently in terms of both looks and abilities. In the 1980s, President Ronald Reagan deregulated the FCC, which allowed toy manufacturers and video game companies to make cartoons of these characters. This is where the original She-Ra falls into this. Like He-Man, She-Ra was a line of action figures. I once said jokingly that She-Ra's action figure looked like a Barbie doll on steroids. The deregulation of the FCC also allowed for cartoons to be more violent or aggressive. In the 1970s, cartoons were shown to be more comedic as well as teaching kids valuable lessons. However, Filmation throughout its history have presented shows with moral values. Fat Albert, He-Man, She-Ra and Brave Star all had a moral attached to each episode. And of course, today's characters are drawn using computers or CGI technology. Since Toy Story hit theaters in 1995, all characters today are made using computers. Also, there is a lot of talk about Cal Arts animation. This is one reason why the new She-Ra is being so widely panned by fans of the original series. If this form of animation is being used today, I now understand why shows like Steven Universe and Teen Titans Go have been so criticized. Which is why I've said that I don't care one way or the other about this She-Ra reboot. But what I want to know is, since when did She-Ra become the poster child for political incorrectness? If younger fans didn't know that the original She-Ra existed before, there are many ways to find out. First, their mothers or fathers might have watched the original show or collected action figures. The original series is available on DVD. Episodes can be downloaded off of iTunes or Amazon. But to slut-shame an existing character and ridiculing fans of that character is completely wrong. There was absolutely no reason to have done both. In the future, people who might look back on this will, and I hope they do, realize that in time, the cartoon characters of today will be victims of their time too. And now we return back for the second half of this story, 2 Shades of Grayskull. Third quarter. Fashion Girl arrived back in Atlanta early Monday morning before the big game. Tiffany, Godiva, and Macy joined her for breakfast. Fashion Girl asked, "Can you guys give me an update about your progress in finding out more about this issue?" Tiffany answered, "We sure have. She-Ra is right. Not only is she being put down but her fans too. Some have felt justified in doing this, while others are up in arms. I don't blame them. Vicky did what you asked and took the twins home last night. She's going to remain in California to help Dean keep an eye on them. Zara had to return to her ship. But they both told me that they will watch the game." Fashion Girl gave Godiva her bracelets back and said, "She-Ra thanks you for letting her use these again." Godiva replied, "I was glad to do it. Tell us, what did you do to help out?" Fashion Girl said, "My purpose over the weekend was to help She-Ra get a better understanding as well as fan reaction. On Friday and Saturday, we went to 2 malls for a meet and greet session. We both posed for pictures and signed autographs, and no one gave She-Ra any negative comments, which I thought helped her to ease her mind. Yesterday, we went to a car dealership also for a meet and greet promotion. The fans' reactions were the same, no negative comments." Confused, Tiffany asked, "What were you both doing at a car dealership? Unless She-Ra wanted to trade a horse in for horsepower?" Fashion Girl laughed and answered, "Well, it was a Ford dealership we went to, but no one bought a car. The owner is a big-time fan of hers and wanted to help. Besides, She-Ra and Swift Wind are a team. They work best when together. But I felt I left her last night, knowing that she's feeling better. Beginning today, she will begin practice for the biggest game of her life." Macy said, "I hope our She-Ra gives that limey Sheila a run for her money." Tiffany replied, "Or limey bloke by what we saw Macy." Macy said, "One thing we all noticed in our research is that these rebooted characters are all different, not just in appearance but diversity. It makes me think that maybe we aren't as diverse." Godiva added, "There are 9 of us, but I'm the only black girl while Macy is the only Asian. Even though Zara is European, and Belle's family was Hispanic, it makes me think that why there isn't an Arab-style chick? A Native American-style chick? Or a true Australian-style chick?" Fashion Girl replied, "That's a good question, Godiva, as well as a good point. I wish I had a good answer but I don't. Who knows, when little Daphne takes my place, she might befriend a more different variety of people to join her. I sincerely hope she does." Godiva said, "Don't worry, girl, you are one of the best persons I've ever known, because you always try to do the right thing. I guess it's more of what you know than who you know." Fashion Girl replied, "I just want for everyone to count on us in their time of need. It's what the style chicks are all about. Thank you for joining me. We will keep up the internet searches until Wednesday night. We will leave for Richmond Thursday afternoon to be there for our She-Ra and this game. I'm also worried that something bad could happen to her if she loses. Her fans will always be loyal, but I'm referring to the fact that this could put her in a very bad state of mind. This is a problem we've never dealt with before, and one I hope we never have to deal with again: social injustice." On the afternoon before the big game, the style chicks and the junior style chicks loaded up the chicken coop motorhome and began the trip to Richmond. While on the road, everyone who wasn't driving tuned into the USCFL network for news and analysis of the game. Coverage was interrupted as the commissioner of the league made a live statement. The statement went as follows. To all the fans of the USCFL, as well as those who likes or dislikes of individual characters, have to agree that tomorrow night's game here in Richmond is unlike any game ever played. To assure the fans of the original Shira, let me state right now that regardless of the outcome of this game, it will have no impact to her status in this league. Shira embodies both the good in all of us, and the true spirit of both competition and compassion. What has happened over the last few months is a blatant attack not just on Shira, but her fans as well. While there is nothing wrong with bringing back an established character for a new generation, it is my understanding that the new show doesn't resemble the appearance, lore, or benchmarks of the original. The very fact that older fans, especially male fans, to use Shira as a tool for certain pleasures, is both inconceivable and angering. Maybe this is true for some people, but to think this is still very insulting. As this game takes place tomorrow night for all involved, the USCFL cannot and will not tolerate disregard of tolerance. I wish both teams the best of luck tomorrow night, and to take with them the fact that there is indeed room in this world for everyone, and to not take a matter like this as seriously as it has. There are more severe problems in this world that deserves more attention. This issue has also crossed the line of it also being racist and political. However, it has been shown throughout history that injustice of any kind to humanity is inexcusable, and our country was founded on the belief that we are all created equal. Thank you and God bless. Everyone in the motorhome who heard this were stunned, and didn't have an answer for it. The commissioner was trying to get the point across that this has gone far beyond the like or dislike of a cartoon character, and turned it into shaming people in general. If you like the original Shira, it means that you are an old dirty man, while liking the new Shira makes you right. Since when was this ever the case? This is just my understanding of this only. The style chicks arrived in Richmond late in the afternoon before sunset. They were given clearance to come inside the stadium at Shira's request. One thing they noticed was a 20-foot statue of the original Shira with a facade of the Crystal Castle behind her. Outside the players or stadium staff, they got a first-hand look at the field itself. The staff made the field to look as if the Super Bowl was to be played instead of an exhibition game. The league did this to give both Shiras equal billing. Fashion Girl came to Shira, who was sitting on the home team's sidelines, and said, "The field looks great. How are you holding up? Are you ready for this game?" Shira answered, "As ready as if I and the rest of us will ever be." Fashion Girl said, "We heard the commissioner's comments on this game. She sounded mad." Shira replied, "She should be. She is also an attractive woman, who is in charge of a major sports league. Makes me think if she ever dealt with anything like this." Fashion Girl said, "As promised, we are all here for you tomorrow night. However, the only skybox we could get is on the visitors' side of the stadium. But we will be looking in your direction." Shira replied, "The game is a complete sellout. Tickets were sold as fast as they were made available. This does worry me though. I've never been so nervous about a game before." Fashion Girl said, "Don't think for a minute that the biggest names in sports, not just the NFL, haven't gone through this before. As many times certain players play in big games, they feel just as nervous about it as they did the first time around." Shira asked, "Have you thought of anything to tell my teammates tomorrow?" Fashion Girl answered, "Nothing yet, but I'm sure whatever I have to say will boost their morale." Belle Kay said, "Shira, I'm Belle Kay. We've never met before, but I have always admired you as well as the stories I've heard too. Fashion Girl asked me to give you our report on what was said on both sides of this issue. Most of what you told her is correct. I won't go into details, but it isn't pretty." Fashion Girl added, "Don't worry about it now. Just put all your focus on tomorrow night. We are here for you if you need us and wish you the best of luck. Vicky and Zara couldn't make it here, but they too send their best wishes." Each style chick, one by one, gave Shira a hug and a handshake, and also gave their best wishes. But one must wonder if all the best is good enough for this game. The atmosphere before the game began the next night was electrifying. It was as predicted, a Super Bowl type environment for an exhibition match. The game was to begin at 8:30. Before that, as promised, Fashion Girl went into the team locker room to say to the players what she had in mind. The other style chicks were there too, but didn't say anything. Fashion Girl took a few moments to meet the other players. She took a deep breath and said, "Shira asked me to give you all some words of encouragement. I'm not much of a motivational speaker, but I hope what I am going to say will help. For a week now, I have been in shock about what has happened over the last few months. This has gone beyond the ridicule of a cartoon character, but the loyal fans that character have has also been ridiculed. When you take the field in the next few minutes, please take this advice in mind. Tonight, you will not be playing for the honor of Grayskull, the USCFL, Virginia, America, or even your fans. Tonight, you will be playing for the honor of yourselves. It's your honor that's at stake here. It's all of you whom most of the fans admire, it's all of you the fans have paid money for merchandise over the years, and it's all of you whom they admire the most. Everyone, put your hands in together and on 3, shout the word honor. 1, 2, 3. At that moment, they all said as loud as they could, honor. Just as the style chicks were about to leave the locker room, out of the corner of her eye, Fashion Girl noticed something on a TV monitor, and asked to have the volume turned up. A sideline reporter was pointing out something unique. The reporter said that entire player body of the USCFL was on hand to see this game. Stunned, Shira said, "I just expected for He-Man and my parents to be here, but the entire league? As if I already didn't have enough pressure put on me." Fashion Girl replied, "I think this is actually a great thing. Don't think of it as added pressure, but think of it as added support. Everyone who has ever played with you or against you is here in unison for you. Remember, you are playing for your honor, no one else's. My friends and I wish you the best of luck. I'll see you after the game." Remember what I said in the halftime chapter that Shira's jersey number was vital to this chapter? And here's why. The new Shira was answering questions to reporters, and she was also wearing the same number. Fashion Girl saw this and said, "The nerve of her. I'd like to put that little bitch over my knee and tan her hide until it glows in the dark. It's bad enough that she's given our Shira grief, but wearing her number, that's brilliant yet wrong." The others thought Fashion Girl was crazy to think that this was brilliant. Tiffany asked, "How do you think this is brilliant?" "I find it insulting." Fashion Girl answered, "John Madden once said that football is 80% mental and 40% physical. By wearing the same number, the new Shira must think that this will throw off our Shira's psyche. We can't be on the field, but this gives me an idea of using reverse psychological warfare. Here's what we'll do." As Fashion Girl discussed her plan, the others thought it was equally brilliant. Here's what happened next. Fashion Girl waited until the last reporter that was asking questions to leave. She went first using a cordial approach and said, "You must be the new Shira? I'm Fashion Girl, leader of the Style Chicks. We are friends of the original Shira, and I want to wish you good luck in the game." Tiffany came up from behind and added, "You're going to need it, honey." Penny was next and said, "I'd like to turn you into a toad." Godiva pointed 2 fingers to her eyes and pointed them back. "You know the I'm watching you gag." Macy was next and slashed a finger across her throat. Sephora gave the new Shira a dirty look and said, "What are you looking at?" Belle's remarks were a little vile and said, "If your looks are dynamite, you don't have enough in you to blow up a balloon." Then it was the juniors' turn, for Fashion Girl told them to be more outspoken. Wendy wanted to rub her breasts in the new Shira's face, but instead Fashion Girl told her to be subtle. Wendy rubbed her hands on her breasts and mouthed the words, "Bet you could have boobs like this? Don't you, honey?" Sax and Bloomingdale came by laughing as Sax said, "Hey Bloomy, do you think she's ever owned a bra?" Bloomingdale replied, "Why would she? She'll never need it." Sax asked, "Do you think she's pretty?" Bloomingdale answered, "No, but if I get drunk enough she will be." And both continued to walk by laughing. 9 West was the last style chick the new Shira saw. After seeing and hearing 10 scathing remarks, she stopped 9 West and asked, "Excuse me, miss, who are you and those other women who made those comments?" 9 West answered, "My name is 9 West." I'm a junior style chick. Those other women were also style chicks. They are disgusted with you as I am. The new Shira asked, how old are you? 9 West answered, I'm 13. Why do you ask? The new Shira noticed how scantily clad 9 West was dressed and asked, you're 13 and you dress like that? 9 West replied, are you going to give me a hard time about it too? Look wannabe, this building is the house that Shira built. Last night when we came here, I saw a beautiful 20-foot statue of her, and it looks great. You are the reason why this game is even taking place. You want to be the next Shira? Fine. The original Shira stood for compassion, caring. She fought for peace, freedom, and even love. She could heal with her touch. She could talk to animals, and was never afraid to step in to help. She's nobody's wife, girlfriend, or mother. She doesn't have to be because her love spreads far and wide for all that knows her. It's pretty clever to wear her jersey number, but you have a lot to learn before you can earn the right to wear that number, or be the next Shira. One more thing, in case you're unaware, 9 West is the name of an upscale shoe store for women. I know about shoes, and those marshmallow moon boots of yours are tacky. Have a nice game. Belle Kay heard this and said, oh snap. I can't believe she just said that. Sephora added, we all heard that, and I still don't believe it. Fashion Girl said, I think we've given the new Shira something to think about even after this game is over with. Our work here is done. Let's go take our seats. One last thing the style chicks did was stop in an on-site retail store, and each bought an original Shira jersey for the game. It was one last tribute to their friend, and the next chapter will describe the game and its outcome in more detail. Fourth quarter. This game was played on the evening of November 30th, 2018. This game was called everything from the Shira Bowl to the Battle of the Shiraz. But the USCFL just called it the most unusual game in USCFL history. A field announcer announced the new Shira team first. As they came out of the tunnel, they were greeted with more boos than cheers. Moments later, 2 men with trumpets began to play Shira's original theme, as the home team came out after being announced. The reaction was the exact opposite. Most fans cheered to ear-shattering applause. The crowd got even louder when the original Shira came into the stadium from the air on swift wind's back. This really got the crowd excited. After the national anthem was sung, a group of fighter jets flew in formation over the stadium. Then fireworks began to shoot off from around the top of the stadium. The new Shira won the coin toss and elected to receive. The temperature in Richmond at kickoff was 45 degrees and clear skies for miles. This is what announcers call perfect football weather. The original Adora kicked off to start the game. For the first 8 minutes, it was a defensive stalemate. Neither team took advantage initially. Fans of both teams thought that this game was going to be a blowout either way. Scoring finally began with the original Shira throwing a touchdown pass to take a 7-0 lead, with exactly 7 o'clock left in the first quarter. On the ensuing kickoff, the new Shira answered back quickly with kickoff return for a touchdown that tied the game at 7-7 with 6:48 left in the first quarter. Right then, everyone in the stadium or watching it on television knew that this was going to be a hard-fought battle. The new Shira kicked a field goal to take a 10-7 lead with 2:49 left in the first quarter. On their next possession, the original Shira scored a touchdown off of a short run to retake the lead 14-10 with 1:36 left in the first quarter. But the new Shira came back with a touchdown pass to take a 17-14 lead with 0:53 left in the first quarter. The quarter ended that way. It was a close game, but there was still 3 more quarters left to go. As the second quarter began, the original Shira retook the lead with a touchdown pass to go up 21-17 with 11:33 left in the second quarter. Once again, there was another defensive stalemate, until the new Shira responded with a touchdown run to again retake the lead 24-21 with 3:33 left in the second quarter. In true fighting spirit, the original Shira had another touchdown pass to again take the lead 28-24 with 1:57 left in the second quarter. To cap off the end of the first half, a field goal by the original Shira put her team up at 31-24 with 0:07 left in the half. That was the score at halftime. Fans in the stadium had mixed reactions to the game so far. Security was tight for the game for fear of fights. So far, no altercations occurred. But the fans on both sides weren't too happy with each other. In Fashion Girl's skybox, the feelings were also mixed. Fashion Girl said, "At least our Shira has the lead, but it's only halftime." Sephora replied, "The new Shira has a good team, I admit, but I don't know about this. If they win, will the original Shira have to bow out?" Fashion Girl said, "The commissioner said she wouldn't, but I have my doubts about it too." Just then, a security guard knocked on the door. Fashion Girl opened it as the guard asked, "Please excuse me, ladies, but which one of you is Fashion Girl?" Fashion Girl answered, "That would be me, sir. What can I do for you?" The guard said, "I was asked to bring you to Shira. She wishes to speak to you." Fashion Girl replied, "Now? At halftime? I told her I would see her after the game." The guard said, "I know, ma'am. She told me the same thing, but she said this was important." Fashion Girl replied, "Okay, sir, I'll go with you." Fashion Girl was escorted back to the original Shira's team locker room. Shira looked mad and asked, "Fashion Girl, did you know about that knockoff wearing my number?" Fashion Girl answered, "Yes, by accident. After we left here, we went to our skybox when we saw the new Shira answering questions by reporters. The others and I did a reverse psychological approach. We wanted to see if she liked being psyched out. But I don't understand why you're mad. Is it me? Or is it because of the halftime score?" Shira said, "Of course I'm not mad at you. But I thought for sure we'd have a big lead. What's more, every other character they rebooted got the same numbers too. That's why I'm so upset." Fashion Girl replied, "I know, we all saw the same thing. All I can say again is to never mind all this. Just keep remembering that you are playing for your own honor. You can still win this, but stay positive." On television in 88 episodes, not counting the 5-part miniseries, Shira never lost. She's only known about defeat ever since she joined the league. She's lost games before, but this one was entirely different. The reputation the original Shira has and could be in jeopardy. The original Shira got the ball first to start the second half, but couldn't get a drive going. But the new Shira did, and put up a touchdown to tie the game again at 31-31 with 12:20 left in the third quarter. After a pair of failed drives, the original Shira put up a field goal to take a 34-31 lead with 8:16 left in the third quarter. The new Shira threw a screen pass that turned into a marathon touchdown run to retake the lead again at 38-34 with 5:20 left in the third quarter. The original Shira bounced back with a touchdown pass to retake the lead 41-34 with 4:09 left in the third quarter. One play was all it took for the new Shira to take the lead again after another long touchdown pass. The score was now 45-41 with 3:49 left in the third quarter. The new Shira added a field goal with 0:14 left in the third quarter, to go up 48-41 with the quarter ending. There were 9 lead changes and 2 ties. The last touchdown the original Shira scored would be the last time she would have the lead. As the fourth quarter began, neither team led by more than 7 points up to that point, but that would soon change. After a series of 3-and-outs, the new Shira got another touchdown run in to go up by 2 scores for the first time in the game 55-41 with 8:11 left to play, and never looked back. The original Shira had no choice on their next drive, to kick a field goal on a short 4th down. As I saw this, I thought that they should have gone for the first down attempt. But I also understood the logic of the decision. The field goal was good, and it shortened the lead to 11 at 55-44 with 6:14 left to play. The new Shira sealed the deal with another touchdown run, and took a commanding 62-44 lead with 3:36 left to play in the game. The original Shira did manage to get one last score in the game on a touchdown pass. The score was now 62-51 3:06 left to play. The original Shira tried an onside kick, that was recovered by the new Shira, and sealed the original's fate with one last field goal, to go up 65-51 with 1:46 left to play. At this point, the original Shira threw for over 500 yards in this game. But it just wasn't enough. On a fumble recovery caused by the new Shira, she ran out the clock to win 65-51. No one doubted that it was an epic match. But the new Shira might have won this battle on the gridiron. However, this could still not work in her favor as far as the internet war was concerned. Only time will tell. The tight security in the stadium continued as fans left with no altercations. It seemed everyone on both sides were satisfied. The style chicks, along with the entire USCFL player body, couldn't believe it. The style chicks waited for the fans to clear out the stadium, and for the original Shira and her teammates to shower and change their clothes. Fashion Girl and Tiffany went back to the locker room area. Fashion Girl did promise to see Shira after the game. What she saw instead completely shocked her beyond belief. Overtime. When Fashion Girl and Tiffany got down to the locker rooms, no one was there. To be sure, they looked in the team locker room. No one was there. And no one was in the male or female locker rooms. This didn't stop them from looking inside the female locker room. Fashion Girl called out Shira's name, but no one answered. Fashion Girl noticed something shiny coming out of Shira's locker. As in every other stadium locker rooms, they are open with no doors or locks. Fashion Girl took a closer look, and pulled out Shira's headdress and primary weapon, the sword of protection. Fashion Girl also noticed an envelope on the floor of the locker. The envelope had tape on it. The envelope fell off the sword at some point. Tiffany asked, "Fashion Girl, is that what I think it is?" Fashion Girl answered, "It is. The sword of protection and her headdress." Tiffany said, "They're both beautiful, but why would Shira leave this behind?" Fashion Girl replied, "I also found this envelope with my name on it." The envelope also had writing on it and it read, as follows, "Fashion Girl, read the letter inside in the event I lose the game." The letter was signed by Adora. Tiffany said, "Adora? We know that she's Shira. Why would she use her real first name?" Fashion Girl opened the envelope, opened the letter, and it read as follows. "My dear friend Fashion Girl. If you are reading this letter, it means I lost the game. I guess the loss proves what these people have been saying all along, that maybe I'm just a hot chick and nothing else. I left my sword and headdress behind and wish to give it to you. I know they will be in good hands. Even if you can't use them like I do, I know you will always treasure them. I'm sorry if I let you, your friends and my fans down. Thank you for everything. Your friend, Adora." After Fashion Girl read the letter out loud, she said, "Tiffany, this is terrible." Tiffany gasped and replied, "Why would she do this?" Fashion Girl said, "We need to find her and fast. It's a good thing that I put that homing device in one of her gauntlets." Fashion Girl turned on the homing device to locate Shira. However, it was her sword that found her location. It began to glow and got brighter once Fashion Girl got closer. Shira never left the stadium. She was sitting high up in the nosebleed section alone and thinking. Fashion Girl instructed the others to wait for her by the main entrance. She said, "Your sword is better than the most sophisticated GPS system. Why are you in the nosebleed section?" Shira answered, "Once the outcome of this game is broadcast on the news and online, my name really will be mud. I've just needed to figure out what to do next." Fashion Girl replied, "Shira, you just played one of the best football games I've ever seen. Nobody in your corner will turn their backs on you now. What do you need to figure out? Please let us help you." Fashion Girl and Tiffany together they escorted Shira back to the main entrance to the stadium. They rejoined the others by the main entrance. Fashion Girl said, "Shira, you are overreacting to this. I think that none of your fans are going to think of you any differently. Also, even if the fans of this knockoff can rub your nose into her victory, the fact still remains that you are the genuine article." Shira replied, "I'm sorry, everyone. It's just a shock. I know I've played some big games before. I've lost them and I won them, but I've never played in such a game before." Fashion Girl took out Shira's sword and headdress and said, I appreciate the gesture, but I can't accept these. I can't use them because I'm not you. Now I have 3 separate identities, and I don't need another one, no offense of course. These are yours, Shira. Continue to use them for the fight of whatever you might continue to face. Fashion Girl got down on one knee with the others following suit as a sign of respect. She raised the sword and headdress to Shira. She took her sword and headdress back and replied, Thank you all for your support. Just then, a portal opened for Shira to go back to her world and continued, I'll see you all in the spring. I wish you all a happy holiday. Fashion Girl said, You too, and don't let this sour you on returning back to Earth. I would be very sad if you don't come back. Please take this one last bit of advice with you. This will blow over in time. When you return, people will forget about this. Always do it for the honor of Grayskull. Farewell, Shira. Until we meet again. Shira replied, Farewell, style chicks. My dear friends. As Shira went through the portal, and after it closed, the others gathered around Fashion Girl. Sephora asked, I know whenever we work on a case like this, we always learn something from it. What can we take from this? What can we do better the next time? Fashion Girl answered, I'm still trying to figure it out myself. Penny asked, Boss, is it really wrong for any woman to be pretty? Fashion Girl answered, Shira asked me the same thing. I told her no. Any woman can be both pretty and powerful. You don't have to be Shira to be both. But as long as people continue to judge people like this, no one will ever be truly appreciated. Godiva said, For the last week, I've been thinking about Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech. Nearly 60 years later, that dream still has yet to be totally fulfilled. I can't believe that people still judge others based on who or what they are. Fashion Girl replied, This putrid spew was all on account of a rebooted show of an iconic character. A character we know personally. She helped all of us to not just be better heroines, but be better people. Would the situation be different if it involved a real person? Also, take into account that what do others think about a person who's different? Is it wrong to be different? You decide. Sachs said, Now that I'm in school, I've seen for myself how some kids treat others through bullying. It's awful what these kids say to one another. Not only that, but using social media against them. I'm sure this wasn't always the case. Fashion Girl replied, Sachs, even at a young age, kids are taught by their parents or their friends to hate someone for the color of their skin, the religion they practice, or just being different, period. When I was a kid, we didn't have cell phones or the internet. If we were bullied in school, at least we didn't have to hear more about it afterward. It still didn't make it right then, and it's not right now. Parents, teachers, and other authority figures are doing something to stop it, but it may never stop. Some things just can't be fully controlled. Tiffany asked, Fashion Girl, I hope that Shira does come back here. I hope that this experience hasn't left a foul taste in her mouth. I know it did in mine. Your final thoughts on this? Fashion Girl answered, I think that all I've said to this point that I don't think I can add to it. However, I can't say this is a happily ever after type of thing. I just wish that these people wouldn't have dragged Shira's name through the mud like this. Why her? The same could be said about us too. That we are too hot and guys drooling over our pictures on posters or on TV. I sincerely hope, that we never experience it ever. Fashion Girl let out a sigh and continued, After tonight, I could use a good stiff drink. But I need to stay lucid to continue to think if we ever deal with this again, we now know to do it differently. Let's all go back home. The style chicks boarded the motorhome and began the long trip back to Atlanta. On the ride, Fashion Girl took off the jersey she bought and took a good long look at it before breaking down in tears. No one had anything to say to one another. The eerie silence was drowned only by the sound of the RV in motion. The next day, there was a poll done by the USCFL that asked if the outcome of the game had affected anyone's opinions about this issue. It turned out that only 9% of people asked said that it did, and a whopping 83% of people asked said that the game strengthened the resolve for the love of the original Shira, and 8% were undecided. And of those 83% asked, more than half weren't born until 1990 or later. It all depends on who you ask and why. Postgame. I guess my final thoughts on this are no different than Fashion Girls is. I'll try to tell you. But first, please remember that this is a fictional story with real-world issues. Don't think the use of a football game is the main focus. This story was intended to put a different spin on social injustice. One thing to remember that all cartoon characters are a victim of their time. If I were in charge of this reboot, here is what I would have done with it. The planet Etheria is finally at peace. The evil horde has been driven out for good. She-Ra becomes an interplanetary hero. Statues and monuments of her would be erected and parades thrown in her honor. She-Ra is still a young woman. She can begin to lead a normal life. She might meet a nice man, fall in love, get married and raise a family. Many years later, another tyrannical group threatens the planet's peace. The people call upon She-Ra again, but this time, it's her grown daughter who takes on the fight. It's similar to what I did with Fashion Girl, by making her a separate character. Would this daughter be named She-Ra, or would she go by another name? Who knows? But either way, it would keep within the original show's premise and continuity. At first, this wasn't a happily ever after ending as Fashion Girl had said. But all that changed after the new year began. She-Ra went to league headquarters and asked the commissioner for another chance to play her counterpart again. The commissioner not only granted the request, but had the game slated exactly 1 week before the official start to the season. With cooperation of the NFL, the game was played at FedEx Field in Landover, Maryland, home of the NFL's Washington Redskins. The game would be known as the rematch of the 21st century. Not to bore you further with any more football highlights, the outcome of the game this time was different. On the afternoon of March 29, 2019, on a clear sunny afternoon near the nation's capital, the original She-Ra dominated her counterpart 54-19. She-Ra threw for 347 yards and 2 touchdowns. The only touchdown the new She-Ra got was very late in the fourth quarter. The Style Chicks were waiting near the player's entrance to congratulate She-Ra on her victory. Everyone shook hands and hugged She-Ra. She-Ra noticed Fashion Girl wasn't there. She asked, "Tiffany, where's Fashion Girl? Why isn't she here?" Tiffany answered, "She's here. She's by our motor home on the other side of the parking lot. We tailgated here, and who wouldn't want to hang out with the Style Chicks? She has some surprises waiting for you." She-Ra followed the others back to the chicken coop motor home. The profile of the RV was actually hiding one of the surprises that Tiffany mentioned. Once in sight, Fashion Girl wearing a leather racing suit was standing next to the motor home. She approached the others and said, "All hail the conquering hero." Fashion Girl also hugged She-Ra and continued, "That was an impressive victory, congratulations." She-Ra replied, "Thank you, Fashion Girl, thank you, everyone. What's with the outfit?" Fashion Girl said, "I will answer that in a few moments, but I have some questions for you. First, why was this game played here instead of in Richmond?" She-Ra replied, "It was for total neutrality. Only the commissioner and I knew of this. Press and media coverage were limited until 3 days ago." Fashion Girl asked, "Weren't the rest of the league was here? We didn't see anyone else other than your team." She-Ra answered, "They weren't here. But they were in Baltimore at an IMAX theater, and the game was shown on one of their screens." Fashion Girl said, "I also noticed the rebooted characters all wore different numbers this time. How come?" She-Ra replied, "If they had, the league would have fined them severely." Fashion Girl asked, "Do you think that now, that you won this game, will it quiet people about the reboot?" She-Ra answered, "Maybe, maybe not. All I do know is that I redeemed myself and my many fans everywhere." Fashion Girl said, "I'd like to see those people behind the new show call you one-dimensional now. Now, as Tiffany probably told you, I have some surprises for you. You did ask me about my outfit, it's part of one of the surprises. But my first surprise for you is, and it's a long time coming, we made a unanimous decision. We are making you a permanent member of the Style Chicks. We give new members an oath of allegiance. Raise your right hand and repeat after me." After Fashion Girl recited the oath to She-Ra, she continued, "Congratulations. Now for part 2 of my surprise, which is the reason why I'm wearing this outfit. Come with me." Fashion Girl took Shira around to the other side of the motor home to reveal a silver Mustang convertible. Shira gasped and replied, "Fashion Girl, you didn't. You bought me a car. Why? I bet Swifty is mad about this." Fashion Girl interrupted her and said, "Wait a minute, Shira, it's okay. Swift Wind was cool with this. He realized that here on Earth, you may have to go to a place where you need a car. Dan Hirsch sold me the car, and as he said that night, he gave me or gave you a very good deal. He included the special paint job for free." The car had Shira's emblem on the hood with red, white, and gold stripes along the sides. Shira replied, "I'm sorry if I reacted, but it's beautiful. Really beautiful, thank you, everybody. I really love it." Fashion Girl said, "Everything's covered. Insurance registration and check out your license plate," and it was Swifty's idea. The license read SWFTWND. Swift Wind without the I. Fashion Girl reached into the car and pulled out a gift-wrapped box and continued, "This is from all of us." Shira opened the box and inside was a gold-colored leather jacket with red and white stripes. Fashion Girl said, "Wear it when you're driving. And speaking of driving, for part 3 of your surprise, we are taking a road trip together. We are going back to my place so you can be officially initiated into the style chicks. Get in and get a feel for your new car." As Shira did this, Fashion Girl turned to the others and said, "Tiffany, carry on part 4 of our surprise once the rest of you are in California." Tiffany replied, "You got it, Fashion Girl. See you in California. Drive carefully." Fashion Girl showed Shira how to put the top down and said, "Buckle up, my friend, and prepare for the adventure of a lifetime." As they drove away, Tiffany said, "There goes Thelma and Louise." Penny looked at Tiffany and replied, "Do you think they would have the same problem?" Tiffany said, "Well, Thelma was a redhead, and Louise was a blonde, sort of. Do I think they would get into trouble?" The others replied together, "Nah." 10 days later at the Mystique Boutique, everyone gathered for Shira's initiation. This time, the ceremony would be different. I will let you in on Fashion Girl's final surprise to Shira. She said, "Shira, in this box is your new costume. However, this isn't a style chick's costume, this is an archangel costume. On the trip I thought and felt that if we changed how you look, we're no better than the people behind the reboot. You will remain Shira with your normal look as a style chick. But you will have a new look as an archangel. You will be called Earth Shaker. Your powers will be that of the earth. Everything you need is in this box. Go ahead and change, I need to talk with Tiffany. Call me when you're ready." Minutes later, Shira knocked on the bedroom door to let Fashion Girl know she was ready to be presented. Fashion Girl climbed the stairs and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have a brief announcement to make. On the way back here from Maryland, I gave it much thought to give Shira a new name and look. I decided that if I were to have gone through with it, I'd be no better than the people responsible for the reboot and all the trouble it caused. So I decided that Shira will remain how she is now as a style chick. However, I also decided to make Shira a permanent archangel, and it's my honor and pleasure to introduce the 7th archangel, and here she is." Shira came out and said, "I am Earth Shaker, and I will rock your world." Everyone applauded for their new ally. He-Man was in attendance and asked, "I like the new look, sis, so what kind of new powers will you have?" Shira answered, "I don't know, brother, but I think Fashion Girl knows." Fashion Girl said, "I do, He-Man. As Earth Shaker, Shira will have the ability to create new lands, help solve some of the crises we face such as food, water and oil shortages, cure and prevent diseases, prevent certain animals from going extinct, stop climate change, and be a diplomat for the world, just like she's been an ambassador to the Galactic Alliance. Like the other archangels, her already amazing powers and abilities are multiplied by 10 with the ability to fly. Her new colors of green, yellow, and blue represent the earth, sky, and the sun." After another round of applause, Fashion Girl continued, "Okay, everyone, this concludes the ceremony. As always, Vicky prepared a nice buffet, so let the party begin." As the party began and progressed, Fashion girl Tiffany, Penny, and Sephora took a seat out in the gazebo. Shira came out to see them with a plate of food and a drink. She sat down as fashion girl asked, "Shira, how come you're not inside? You are the guest of honor, after all." Shira replied, "I had to step out because the fat cats were arguing over who would dance with me first." Sephora laughed and said, "Don't worry, Shira, they had the same argument when I had my ceremony until my father stepped in." Shira continued, "I want to thank you all again for everything. I am so happy right now." Fashion girl replied, "I'm glad to hear that. However, this still isn't a happily ever after type ending." Penny asked, "Boss, how can you say that? Shira got her revenge, she now has that awesome new car, the trip you took together, and this party. It just doesn't make any sense." Shira answered, "No, Penny, fashion girl is right. As far as all of you are concerned, it is a happy ending. But as long as the people who made this reboot continues to drag my name and anyone associated with me through the mud, it will never be a happy ending. It is true. As of the time I wrote this, the people behind the reboot are still doing this, including not acknowledging one of Shira's creators passing away. Let me close this story with this final thought. If I ever were to be in need of help and both Shiraz were to offer assistance, based on what I now know about both of them and what they're capable of, I'll take the hottie over the naughty any day of the week, and looks have nothing to do with it. Thank you for reading this series of stories about Fashion Girl and the Style Chicks. Take care and stay stylish." The end.
When I go to Paris, I feel like a duchess.
Bonjour madame, j'aimerais celle-ci en 37 s'il vous plaît.
I like bikinis, so I go to Milano, and I speak Italiano.
Questo profumo, il odore così bene, così bene.
I'm a fashion girl, out with diamonds and pearls. I spend too much money on shoes and bags and jewelry. I'm a fashion girl, I love her and it loves me so much, so much, so much it begs to have me. I'm a fashion girl, out with diamonds and pearls. I spend too much money on shoes and bags and jewelry. I'm a fashion girl, I love her and it loves me so much, so much, so much it begs to have me. I'm in love with beauty, anything that's pretty. Yeah, I really don't care.
They can stop and stare.
Fashion has a price, sometimes worth more than twice.
The shop girls call me sweetie.
You think I'm not that witty? I'm a fashion girl, out with diamonds and pearls. I spend too much money on